One, if you just saw my foot in the shot, it's because I have to do a little bit of gymnastics to get from that side of the desk to this side of the desk. Two, no, I'm not a breastfeeding mother. My shirt is a little bit wet because my hair was wet. Three, this is an episode on perfectionism, and I've probably recorded this 8 times now. And I was going to wait for my sweatshirt to dry, and then I thought, no, this is about perfectionism. We're not a perfectionist. We didn't just film this 8,000 times. We're not a perfectionist. We're going to do it with a wet sweatshirt. We're going to do it with wet titties. So no, I'm not a breastfeeding mother. It's just my hair's wet, and so my shirt got a little wet. Anyway, I digress. Yes, we're talking about perfectionism today. So in the name of perfectionism, would you please stop playing all or nothing with your life? And I say that with such conviction, and I don't mean to say it directly at you. What I really am trying to say is I'm trying to say it to myself. For the longest time, I didn't want to dress this version of my body up. I just wanted to leave the house in sweatpants and a sweatshirt, because when I was younger, when I had maybe 30% body fat, I could put anything on and I felt flawless, and it fit pretty flawlessly. And when I was younger, I didn't even have to wear makeup and my face was glowing. And when my face and when my body started to change, if I didn't fit and look good in everything, then I didn't want to wear anything. I just wanted to leave the house in sweatpants and a sweatshirt. And if I didn't look flawless, regardless of makeup or not, then I didn't want to put makeup on at all. We cannot play all or nothing with our lives. It is difficult, but find an outfit, find the clothes that fit this version of your body, that make this version of your body attractive, that give you the confidence with whatever version you're sitting in today. And people might think, well, no, that means I'm becoming complacent and I just gave up on myself. No. When we feel our best, when we feel confident, even though we're still trying to look a different way, even though we're not in our goal body and maybe we'll never get there, but when we feel confident in where we are today, it spills out into the remainder of our day. When we put makeup on in the morning, doesn't it orient us towards what is beautiful? At least it does so for me. And I'm not saying I put makeup on and now I'm like looking at myself in the mirror oriented towards what is beautiful because, oh my God, look at myself. I'm just so beautiful and stunning. I've now oriented myself towards what is beautiful. No, I mean, I try to make myself more beautiful. And from there, I feel better about myself. And now once I feel better, now I'm ready to go put on an outfit that I feel good in. And now once I feel good, oh my gosh, I want to treat myself better. What does treating yourself better look like? Well, now I want to eat healthy. And now that I had a healthy breakfast, I feel good. So I'm ready to go to work and be productive. And the more productive I am, the better I'm feeling. So the nicer I'm feeling. It spills outward into our day. And we think, no. I'll put on a nice outfit. I will dress up when I'm skinnier. And so what happens? We don't wear makeup. We just put the sweatpants and a sweatshirt on. We hide. We feel terrible about ourselves. What happens when we feel terrible about ourselves is we continue to act towards ourselves in a terrible way. So now maybe we're more likely to eat less healthy. When you eat less healthy, or maybe we're more likely to binge eat. Well, when we binge eat, then we continue to spiral downward and we stay stuck in this pattern of binging, restricting, low self-esteem, sweatpants, no makeup. We cannot play all or nothing with our lives. And maybe you're not somebody who has this intimate relationship with makeup or clothes, and that's fine. Maybe your morning routine has to look like something else. All I'm trying to say is do not let the idea of perfectionism hold us back from being confident and from performing the best that we can given where we're at now. If it really is deep down our goal to look better and to feel our best, then we have to look our best and feel our best here and now, and it will spiral us into taking action to look and feel our best in the future to achieve that goal. We cannot hate ourselves into becoming skinnier. We cannot hate ourselves into becoming more fit and feeling better. We have to care for ourselves. We have to love ourselves into it. And we're going to talk about that today. And we did talk about this last time as well. We discussed bad body image and a more abstract or philosophical way out of a bad body image, disordered eating, or really any problem for that matter. And what is this philosophical way out? The way out is not by way of perfectionism, but by way of perfect love. And for me, it is perfect love to do what is ultimately best for me, to pursue the truth. And the truth is, I got to put my makeup on in the morning, even if I feel puffy and disgusting and it feels as though I'm putting makeup on a pig. Because from there, my day just spirals upward. So the way out is not by way of perfectionism, but by way of perfect love. And today I want to reiterate and discuss perfectionism versus perfect love. And I also want to try and make this idea a little bit less abstract and a little bit more tangible. Might be slightly redundant, but I really just want to drive home this idea of perfect love and distinguish it from perfectionism. So perfect love, what the heck does that even mean? To love is to will the good, and perfect love means to will your own good and the good of others by way of doing the thing that would be ultimately best for you in any given moment. This is not easy. Loving yourself is not easy. The word love gets a bad rap. Self-love gets a bad rap. I feel as though the older generation hears Generation Z and the millennials who have hopped on the self-care train. The older generation hears us talking about self-care and they think, well, that just means self-absorption, being obsessed with oneself. That is not love. That is vanity. And the core of self-care, I think, is actually to take care of yourself, to love yourself, not to be self-absorbed. Again, self-absorption is vanity, not love. And as we discussed on the last episode, Narcissus taught us what happens when we are vain, when we are hyper self-focused. So love, self-love gets a bad rap. When I'm saying pursue perfect love, I'm not saying pursue self-absorption. Additionally, people will confuse self-love as being light, ecstatic, full of ecstasy. And if we are talking about the different forms of love, the ecstatic, bright, full of ecstasy type of love would more so be eros love. So yes, that is a form of love. Eros love is a form of love, but it's typically shared between you and a significant other, mostly associated with, say, the early part of a relationship. Not that y'all can't be ecstatic, sexy, hot, and heavy for the entirety of your relationship, but I think eros love is more easier to understand when we think of it in the context of that honeymoon phase or in the context of having a crush on somebody. Eros love is not the type of love I'm talking about when I talk about perfect love being the antidote to addiction, depression, and anxiety, disordered eating, etc. I personally don't think Eros is the type of love we can rely on to draw us away from our problems in a sustainable way. And I want to take a moment to explain why I don't think that we can talk about, or I think that we can rely on Eros love to draw us away from our problems in a sustainable way. I'm going to explain why. That feeling of ecstasy that you get when you get attention from a guy, a girl, when you're giggling, flirting, yes, it might help. It's helped me in the past. It's like taking an antidepressant. Eros love literally changes neurotransmitter release, which is what a drug will do. Or I should say, which is what certain drugs will do. In the initial stages of attraction, our physiology starts to shift into the sympathetic nervous system, the part of the nervous system which, funny enough, is the part that we tap into when we're faced with a threat. Threat, sympathetic nervous system. Attraction, sympathetic nervous system. What does this mean? This means our cortisol is rising. Our stress hormones are rising. Cortisol is just one stress hormone. There's many others. But anyway, stress hormones are rising. As a result, serotonin is starting to decrease, and then in comes the dopamine, baby. And now you're flying. You're euphoric. Your problems start to dissipate. You feel hot. You feel sexy. You're not hungry because there is a perfect storm of cortisol and dopamine storming in a specific brain region, causing our appetite to decrease, causing us to become more focused. We're locked in, and we're just a little bit schizophrenic, just a little bit. You're a little bit delusional. Your friend has told you 15,000 times that the person that you're crushing on doesn't like you. They're just a very nice person, which is why they said hi to you in passing, because they know who you are and they're not going to be rude. Obviously, I'm not saying that you're actually a schizophrenic. I only make that comparison because those with schizophrenia have an abundance of dopamine within certain brain regions, which is causing them to hallucinate. And so you're not schizophrenic, maybe a little bit delusional. And also, maybe, who knows, maybe that person passing in the hallway said hello to you because they do like you. Maybe they weren't just being nice. But I digress. My point is your dopamine is flying. You're well, but you're also slightly unwell. I learned that the low levels of serotonin as a result of increased stress hormones, right? Like we said before, cortisol going up, serotonin going down. I learned that this causes, according to Harvard medical professor Richard Schwartz, it causes us to experience unfavorable thoughts associated with a crush, right? Those quote, intrusive, maddeningly preoccupying thoughts, hopes, terrors of early love, the obsessive compulsive behaviors associated with infatuation. He's talking about the low serotonin causing the, oh my God, I like him, but I don't need to be obsessing over him so much to the point of having a headache. That type of obsession being a result of the low serotonin levels. And I say all of this, one, because I find it just super interesting, and two, to explain at a neurochemical level why this form of love might be helping us. Why is Eros love? Why is having a crush on somebody helping us? What's happening at a neurochemical level that is bringing us into a different state of mind? Well, if you're having obsessive and slightly compulsive thoughts about a crush, there's less room up here to be obsessive and compulsive regarding food. Also, your appetite is likely decreasing because of that increased dopamine, etc. But also, you're less obsessive about your problems because you're obsessing about this other person. It's, as Aldous Huxley would say in regards to drugs, as Aldous Huxley says, he says they open the doors of perception. With a crush, with drugs, you're flooded with a different neurochemical pattern. And the doors flood open. You can leave the neurochemical state of anxiety and depression and enter into a lighter, less overwhelmed, more uplifted state. A place where you're like, whoa, I opened these doors. I had no idea people were living up here. I didn't know this was an option. And what helped me get up there is this neurochemical storm associated with this Eros love. You're able to leave that state and enter into a place where you're lighter, happier, less overwhelmed. Dopamine activates the reward circuit, helping to make love a pleasurable experience similar to the euphoria associated with cocaine or alcohol. That is a quote from the Harvard Medical Newsletter. My point being, point blank, it's a drug. Eros love, having a crush, infatuation, liking, loving, is like a drug. In the last couple of years, there's been a lot of research on the use of psychedelics to help individuals with PTSD or some other forms of extreme trauma. And I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of it, so please take everything that I say as a grain of salt and do your own research. And also, I'm not proposing that you go down to Mexico and take ayahuasca or psilocybin or mescaline, but the research is showing that these experiences are giving these individuals a blank slate. Their brains are nestled into these neuro patterns that are keeping them lodged into these patterns of PTSD and negative feedback loops and memories about terrible things that happened. And these really powerful drugs are giving them a blank slate. Our neurons are so incredible. They have like these little doors that open up, and if there's enough of an electrical signal, they open up and an action potential goes down the axon, heads into the synapses. Please forgive me if I'm explaining this wrong, but you get the point. There's these little doors that open up, and that's what sends a signal down your neuron. Well, these really powerful drugs, to my understanding, kind of open up a lot of these doors across all the different neurons. They open up the doors, they create a clean slate. And as I've heard so many soldiers just from listening in podcasts talk about, is just because they have that experience, just because a clean slate is provided to them, doesn't mean that the work ends there. It just gives them an opportunity to create better neurochemical patterns. They still then go and work with cognitive behavioral therapists. They still work on their relationships. They eat healthy. They work out. They exercise. They do the things that they need to do to not go back into this state. So having a crush or a significant other might provide you and your brain with a reminder, or with, I should say, an awareness that it is possible to function at this lighter, less obsessive state of mind. It might show you that you do not need to sit so stuck and pensive about everything that you eat. You don't need to sit so stuck and pensive, perseverating on not only have I eaten, but where in my body is this going, and can I feel the puffiness and this and that. We don't need to sit there. We can sit in a state of mind where we're overthinking less. We can sit in a state of mind where we are less obsessive. That crush, that attraction might provide us with the opportunity. It might provide us with kind of a blank slate or an awareness that we can live up there. But the work isn't done there. And where do you turn when you maybe break up with this person? Or what happens if you're single and you don't have this person yet? Or what happens when the ecstasy subsides a little bit as you settle into your relationship? Or what happens when your significant other is struggling themselves and you can't necessarily have them lifting you up? You need to be there for them. What happens then? Eros love is not a sustainable antidote to our problem. It is wonderful. It can help. And I'm not saying to stymie those feelings when you're experiencing them. We are here not just for the pits of hell. We talk a lot about the pits of hell, but we are also here for the heights of beauty. So yes, experience them. But we cannot use it as the mechanism that we are relying on. We cannot be sitting around waiting for a drug in the form of another person, in the form of a significant other, to come and save us. So what do we do in the meantime? I'm going to take a sip of my water. That's what we do in the meantime. What do we do in the meantime? Well, that is where the type of love that I am talking about comes into play. The type of love I am talking about is agape love, sacrificial love, not the light, easy, ecstatic love. This is the type of love where you have to ascend beyond what it is that you want in the moment to do the thing that you might be a little bit resistant to do, but is the thing that would be ultimately best for you. We have to live with enough humility to pursue and do the thing that we know we ought to do. To put this idea a little bit more simply, I want to appeal to one of the phrases used by one of my favorite podcast fathers, and that is this: discipline is the greatest form of self-love. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, yes, it is Jocko Willink's favorite phrases. Now, I only say that phrase to try and summarize my point in a way that will resonate with you, but I want to push back on this phrase a little bit, of course, and amend it to this: perfect love is the greatest form of self-love. I think those of us struggling with obsessive thoughts, depression, and disordered eating, we have to be careful when we hear the word discipline. Just because Jocko is saying discipline, you guys, he is not saying perfectionism. We hear discipline, we think perfectionism. Discipline leads us to progress, and more progress that we see and experience, the less we want to mess up and the more we want to stay perfect. And if we are to mess up, the more likely we are to become very, very upset and start spiraling downward. We are those all or nothing types, those of us struggling with disordered eating. That's why we're in a disordered eating pattern in the first place, because we're like, do this, don't do that, all or nothing. We are those all or nothing types. We hear discipline, we hear perfectionism, we hear discipline, and you guys, the notebooks are coming out. We are not walking. We are running to the office section of Target to get a new agenda. Creating to-do lists starts to become our day jobs, and our days start to become scheduled down to the hour or even the very minute. And if we miss a beat, if we go over the time that we allotted to get changed, if we go over the time we allotted to create or make a meal in the morning, if our calorie tracker starts to enter into the red zone, all hell breaks loose because it's all or nothing. If all is the goalpost, if checking off every single box on the to-do list for the sake of discipline is the goalpost and we don't live up to that, if we miss the mark, if we failed, well, those of us struggling with disordered eating, anxiety, we're also kind of wrapped up in depression. And those struggling with depression do not turn and look at the system that they're living their lives by and say, you know what, maybe this is not working because the system is not working. Those struggling with depression, I recently learned, will turn on themselves and say, it's not the system I'm living under, it's me. There's just something wrong with me. I struggled with binge eating because I always thought, well, could not possibly be the 1,200 calories and twice a day I'm working out. Could not possibly be the system that I'm living under that's making me incredibly hungry, anxious, a little bit irritable. Could not possibly be that. If I fail and binge eat, well, then I just need to try harder at the system that I've already have in place. If I can't stop thinking about food, it's not the system that I'm creating. There's just something wrong with me. I'm just a disgusting human being who can't stop thinking about food. There's just something wrong with me. I would just continue through that cycle. Well, that's insanity. I just said that as if I have a Long Island accent. That's insanity. I'm not from Long Island. This year I was at work. And I texted my sister, and I texted her something along the lines of like, oh my God, I didn't think about food until lunch. I think it's because I ate enough at breakfast. And she was like, yeah, Teresa. She was like, that's typically how it works. If you're not hungry, you don't think about food until you become hungry. And if you had enough food to sustain you for several hours, then you're probably not going to think about food. Something so simple, it just blew my mind. I would try so hard to finish every meal still feeling hungry because hunger indicated to me progress. Hunger indicated to me that I had not entered into the fed state. I was still in the fasted state. I was still possibly losing weight. Well, what happens when I would just consistently be hungry and hungry and hungry and hungry after every single meal? I would give up and binge eat. And then that would totally ruin what it is that I was trying to do in the first place. I didn't think it was the system. I just thought that there was something wrong with me. The oldest root of the word discipline, according to the online etymology dictionary, is penitential chastisement, punishment for the sake of correction. Penitential chastisement, punishment for the sake of correction. It's punishment, right? The teacher disciplined the child. The teacher punished the child, trying to bring him back into line to act a certain way. This is why I have a slight bone to pick with the phrase, discipline is the greatest form of self-love. Because if we can't live up to perfect discipline, we punish ourselves, we turn on ourselves, we get angry with ourselves. And those of us struggling with binge eating tend to have low self-esteem. The literature is pretty clear on that, which means we view ourselves as an accuser would. For some people, this phrase, discipline is self-love, It's great. They mess up, they move on. They're like, great, I'm just going to get back on track. No biggie. Okay. Those of us struggling with binge eating have that low self-esteem. All right. So we're not just moving on. We are now starting to view ourselves as an accuser word. We don't feel worthy of love. We don't feel worthy of just, oh, hey, no big deal. I messed up. Let me move on. Great. Gonna go back to the system. No biggie. We don't do that. We feel obligated to get angry, stressed, and depressed. We feel obligated to punish ourselves because look at what we just did. We just ate 5,000 calories in one sitting. Who are you to have joy? Who are you to move on despite what you have just done? Look at what you just did to yourself. You're not worthy of moving on. Stay inside. Don't go out there and live your life. You are not worthy. It all comes back to pride and this fear of how others view us. We think, let me show my friends, my family, the universe, God, whomever, that I disapprove of what I'm doing. And how am I going to show them that I'm disapproving of what I'm doing? I'm going to punish myself so I can prove to them that I disapprove of me. So we further punish ourselves, we further self-sabotage, we destroy ourselves. We stay inside, we stay isolated, depressed, we binge watch TV, we scroll until the umpteenth hour, we don't get good sleep, and then the cycle continues and continues and continues because, the literature's pretty clear on sleep helping with depression too. So we stay inside. We punish ourselves to prove to other people that we're no good. We feel obligated to be angry with ourselves and to continue self-sabotaging. You guys, we're not obligated to anger. It just leads to more chaos. You don't want that for you. I don't want that for you. A loved one doesn't want that for you. Evil doesn't beat evil. They join together. Evil joins together to create an army within you that will destroy any ounce of good that you have. Binge eating, evil. Anger, evil. Binge eating, getting angry and punishing yourself, they're on the same team. They are on the same team. Self-violation by the way of punishment and discipline will not destroy evil. You can only destroy evil with its opposite, and that is perfect love. Perfect love is saying, what is best for me here and now that can help absolve me of what it is that I just did and can help me moving forward so I start to do what is bad for me less and less and less. It is gentler than discipline. We want clear lines. We ruin today. We want to continue self-sabotaging. We had half a cookie for breakfast. We want to throw the day away. We want black and white. We want all or nothing. We messed up today. Let's make today a terrible, dark day. We want a clear line. Well, let's make the clear line sleep. We want a clear, new, fresh start. We want to be perfect tomorrow. Well, let's make tomorrow better. We'll ruin today. We'll get back on track. We'll start again tomorrow. We want black or white. Perfect love is the gray area. It's saying you messed up in one moment. No. You will your good in the next moment. You call a friend. You go for a walk. You take a glass of water. You take a nap. You read a book. You do what is ultimately best for you in this moment because tomorrow isn't promised. And a few hours from now is also not promised. So how can you ascend beyond what it is that you want in the moment to what it is that is ultimately best for you? So I almost think that perfect love is harder than discipline. Discipline has that clear, regimented line. It's the plan. It's the system. Perfect love means even if it wasn't perfect, you start to enter into that gray area. You do what is ultimately best for you, even if the moment before you did something that you're ashamed of. My friend and I are reading Let Them by Mel Robbins, and on page 10, she says this: you'll never feel ready to change your life. One day you get tired of your excuses, you force yourself to do it. You're never going to feel like going to the gym. One day you make yourself go. You're never going to feel like having the hard conversation. One day you're sick of avoiding it and you force yourself to have it. You're never going to feel like looking for a better job, but one day you start to push yourself to start looking. I don't think it's true. I think there is a place and there is a state where what it is that you ultimately want is what it is that is ultimately best for you. The more we start to lean into doing what is ultimately best for us, the more it becomes our life and the more it becomes our identity. Why? Well, if you're doing what is ultimately best for you, it means you're loving yourself. It means you are viewing yourself as somebody who is worthy of love. It becomes your identity and it becomes your life because that is what it is that you start to do and act according to, if that made sense. You messed up, well, you start taking the next right steps. You mess up, you start taking the next right steps. Those 2 bad steps are totally outweighed by all of the goodness that you just did. And you start to do that so many times over and over and over again that what it is that is ultimately best for you starts to actually become what it is that you crave. What it is that you want starts to actually become what it is that is ultimately best for you. I do think that there is a place where it's not antagonizing to do the thing you know that you need to do. It just becomes a part of your life. I now work out, not because it is not a chore to work out. I just go. I love it. I love the feeling because I have a more ordered relationship with exercise now. And I know that I'll feel better afterward. And I can't wait for that feeling, so I want to work out. It's no longer antagonizing. And I think it might be antagonizing to start the process, but once it starts and you're reveling in the fruit that pursuing it has created, it just becomes easier and easier to pursue and pursue. The more you settle into your true identity, viewing yourself in the way that somebody who loves you would, and doing what it is somebody who loves you would want to do, the more you actually want to do what is ultimately best for you. So, stop playing all or nothing with your life. You can go to the gym even if you don't have 30, 25, 12. I don't even think women can have 12% body fat. I don't think it's healthy. I actually don't know if it's quite possible. Probably. There's probably a woman out there who has it. Anyway, you can go if you're fluffy, if you have no muscle mass. We think, oh, I don't want to go to the gym because I'm never going to look the way that I want to look. That doesn't mean you don't go. That doesn't mean you're not worthy of that feeling you get after you go for a long walk, a long run, a weightlifting session, a HIIT workout, CrossFit. That doesn't mean you can't go. Even if you can't hit your goals, it doesn't mean that you let the idea of perfectionism hold you back from pursuing altogether. You cannot play all or nothing with your life. A little bit redundant, trying to make this distinction between perfectionism and perfect love. But just remember, regardless of what it is that you did, if you're ashamed, if you're scared of pursuing what is ultimately best because you'll realize that you wasted all this time not pursuing what is ultimately best, push all those thoughts to the side and start to will your own good, regardless of what it is that you've done. I think I probably said it 15,000 times by now. Okay. And I feel as though I just explained God in a very backward way. perfect love is God. God is perfect love. That is the definition of God. God is love. So pursue God. Or call it whatever you want to call it. That's all. Bye.